This video is brought to you by catbeast.com. Design your own custom snapbacks and hats.
Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we not only have another new DNA test video to go over with another shocked young girl whose reaction is also borderline offensive, but also we have more updates about the previous DNA test girl as well. All of that and more soon, but first let me thank Catbeast again for sponsoring today's video. They've got some really nice affordable caps and custom snapbacks and hats on sale right now just in time for Christmas, so check out their links below in the description of this video. Now back to what I now call the DNA test girls, because I think that's the most appropriate title for them at this point. And well, our first three test subjects, Elizabeth Warren, Nia Hope, and Brittany Ann, they're about to be joined by another girl with a pretty similar but also somewhat different situation. She's going to be surprised she's part something, but it's not what you probably think. Before we get to that though, let's talk about our latest DNA test girl, Brittany Ann. About a week ago, we covered Britt's questionable but welcomed apology video, and after we talked about it and gave her some sort of forgiveness, I thought that story was going to be over, but alas, more people on YouTube ended up picking up on that story shortly after we did. Two other big commentary channels covered Brittany Ann in her video, and a few smaller ones also started getting in on the DNA test action as well. This inevitably created new interest for this meme, and I think I can understand why. Brittany's video was hilarious, and her wishing she was anything but white was rather cringy, but still also fun to watch. But besides that, since then, I haven't heard much more about Britt or anything DNA test related. Well, that was until I found this new video we're going to talk about today. Today's video comes from a channel called MJXOXO, and it's called German Girl Gets DNA Tested, Shocking. And right out the gate, I think we can see where this is going and how bad this could be. Before we get to the video though, let's go ahead and break down this still frame first. First, we see a typical girl on YouTube, vlogging in her smaller bedroom, usually sitting on their bed like this. And now, the first thing that comes up immediately here is this girl really doesn't look German like she claims. The title says German Girl Gets DNA Tested, Shocking, but this is definitely not what a typical German girl looks like. Germans typically have blonde hair and blue eyes, and maybe some red hair too, but definitely fair skin for sure. And they don't have hair and eyes like this girl. And also, this new DNA test girl, MJ, clearly looks part Asian to me too. She has this really round face and slightly Asian eyes and dark hair and dark eyes too. So with all that said, I think we could start to see where her disappointment might be coming from. For some reason, she thinks she's German, and she's about to find out she's pretty much not. Let's check out the video now then and see where this thing goes. I have to skip over about 6 minutes in the beginning though, because she has this cringy introduction and a whole long advertising sequence that talks about her stupid jewelry. But once we get past that, we get to the good stuff, like this.
Since I started my channel over 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, there's one question that always comes up. No matter what video, no matter where, no matter from who, like la la la. People always ask me where I'm from. What's my mix? Why I look like that? Where's my dad from? Where's my mom from? I hear this all the time.
Well, I can't say I'm surprised. You're a pretty girl with an interesting look, and you're also talkative and probably approachable in public. And these are questions people will inevitably ask you too, no matter what you look like, by the way. You could be European looking, Asian, Hispanic, or whatever. People and their backgrounds are just always of great interest, especially in current year with the technology we have, and this is why we now have this new trend of everyone getting their DNA tests done. The interest and want and need to discover your past finally combined with the technology and its affordability of these new DNA tests, and that's what's brought us here today. Both this girl and our reaction to other girls like this were a product of people and our natural curiosity about our backgrounds, lineage, and DNA, which is where this conversation leads if we're more scientific about it. There is of course a big difference in our role in this trend and these girls, and the other DNA test girls for that matter. They all are on the more gullible side, where they've gone so far as to take public DNA tests for themselves, which went horribly wrong for them. These DNA test girls basically are self-exposing themselves too, in a way in which they don't even know they're exposing themselves in the first place. They release their tests and their videos and promotions thinking they look fine in these videos. They even think they look great sometimes, going so far as to post these videos, promote them, and leave them up for extended lengths of time in most cases. But then once one or two people like myself, for example, once we start covering their reactions honestly and discussing how hilarious and somewhat offensive and borderline racist this shit has become, then the girls finally finally get the hint, but they often don't fully repent or retract their statements at all. Last week, Britney did, but that was a rare exception. Even though these reactions do seem highly questionable, you know, the way they want to be these other certain minority races for the victim points, and at the same time, these girls and their SJW influences kick in, making them despise their European, Caucasian, or white people ancestry, which comes off equally offensive and bigoted. And this is according to their own politically correct, social justice warrior leaning sensibilities too. They're the ones who get so touchy about race and make everyone out to be offensive and biased anyway. But sometimes these left-leaning types, they lose all self-awareness and don't realize they're becoming the thing they've claimed to hate, just in different ways that they can't see accurately anymore because they're blinded by liberal, anti-white, pro-minority propaganda.
My mom is French. My dad is half Korean, half German. I do not know my dad, by the way, so I cannot investigate too much, but that's all I know. I don't even really know how my dad looks like. I have like old pictures from my dad, which he looks completely Asian. Like, I could never tell he's mixed, to be honest with you. But yeah, my mom is French, but her dad was found.
Well, honestly, it sounds like you've got some questionable data about your father's lineage. Sucks that you don't know your dad and can't follow up with him, but it really doesn't seem like you have a good picture of his story. You're operating on hearsay, and you say you heard he was half Asian and half German, but in pictures he looked Asian all the way. But then you don't have many pictures of him either, so it all sounds like a big mystery. Not the end of the world either, and it's not even this girl's fault completely, but this does become a problem when girls like this get too focused on these things, and they start making assumptions and have these preconceived notions, ones that this girl obviously holds. This is built up in their heads, and this buildup will eventually lead to disaster too. Believe me, this girl's going to be in for a rude awakening when she discovers what her real background is. And now that we've taken it slow here and heard her out and paused things too, we can see where this shocking revelation came from. It's because MJ here built things up in her head for years, over and over, and she always knew very little about her father to begin with. So combining that mystery of that story together with all this, and we can now see why whatever she's about to find out from this DNA test is going to be very important to her and probably surprising and shocking. And since things are far more likely to go a way that she doesn't expect, that's what happens, and that's why it's about to get pretty dramatic here.
Ladies and gentlemen, here are my results. Okay, how do I do this again? Ah yeah, My Heritage, that's the website. Imagine I'm like African. I was gonna say, oh, that explains my, but no, I can't dance, I can't sing, I don't have rhythm.
Okay, wow. Looks like we almost have a repeat of the Brittany Ann incident. This MJ girl here, she clearly seems excited about the possibility of being part African. She did a little dance and even realized she wasn't part African by listing off some pretty stereotypical traits they might have. She said she can't dance, she can't sing, and she doesn't have rhythm. And this was a way to counter-argue herself when she suggested she might be black. So she's also implying those stereotypical characteristics are part of their culture, which isn't completely wrong, but wow, I got a couple other things to say about that. First of all, we're getting into fetishization territory. This is very similar to our last DNA test girl who wanted to be black too. Now we've got MJ wanting to be black so she can have victim points and better singing and dancing skills, and that just sounds a little weird. I wouldn't call it racist myself exactly, but many would in these circumstances, especially those in her circles and on her side. Like if an SJW, for example, heard me say something like, I hope I'm part Asian so I can be good at math, but unfortunately, being part Asian will also make me a worse driver. Well, that would obviously be offensive to a leftist, and so too should this fetish about being part African be offensive as well. It's really just using race assumptions too and ethnic stereotypes as well in order to have hopes or fears about what will happen with this DNA test, which is discovering what your background is. So needless to say, a lot of the nuance of things here is being lost immensely, and if we judge SJW types the same way that they cast judgment upon us and everyone else, clearly there would be a problem.
Okay, let's start from the lowest, guys. Whoa! Okay, wait. So I'm 0.8% Native American. Okay, this is like a super small percentage, so let's just forget about it. It's like 0%.
If only Elizabeth Warren had this much common sense, then she wouldn't have had that embarrassing DNA test scandal and reveal of her own last year. Funny how this ditzy millennial girl, MJ, has more common sense than a Democratic presidential candidate right now. And it's also about to get even funnier here because MJ is about to get to her very shocked and extremely surprised moment, the one we've all been waiting for, so let's go ahead and check it out.
Okay. Oh, what? No! I am so shocked. Oh my gosh, this explains my big face. I am only 5.2% Japanese and Korean.
Talk about doing her O face. This girl was legit freaking out right here too. And it's because of this first bit and what comes next. First of all, she thought she was like at least a quarter Korean, but now it's likely she's less than 5%. Sure, they are still getting data on Korean lineage like they said earlier, and all these DNA tests could be wildly off for all we know, but this whole thing is kind of a racket anyway, and we could all be getting royally misled for all we know. So all we can do is use the data we have and going off of this information, and now we got the first girl shocked that she's not really that much Korean. She originally said she was half French and a quarter German and a quarter Korean. Then she made things more confusing when she said her French mother had a minority father who didn't know where he was from either. So really, I think all of her preconceived notions are highly questionable, and she could be completely wrong about everything too. Who knows what else she's part of at this point, but I do have my doubts she'll be very close to being a German girl like how she in this video's title claim.
I am 8% Chinese and Vietnamese. And I'm 13.6% Mongolian. I feel like I want to call my dad, but we don't talk, so I can't, but...
Sounds to me like the Mongolian background is really throwing this chick for a loop. While she is a quarter Asian like expected, she was hoping to be a more hip and trendy Korean type of Asian. You know, she's probably a big K-pop fan or something. Wants to be on the cooler East Asian side with Korea and next to Japan and what have you. And well, it appears MJ thought she was one of the cooler Asians, according to her, and then this Mongolian revelation really surprised her, obviously. And I have to say, I'm not exactly too surprised myself. This girl looks like she's Mongolian a lot actually. She's got that big face and a round head and everything. She'd fit right in there for sure, but for some reason, she's really shocked about this. Probably because Mongolian is not only a less famous, less impressive country to be from, according to her at least, and well, it's also showing her large and gaping bias here. Frankly, I don't see anything wrong with Mongolia, but I do recognize it's been known to be, let's say, a bit more of a homely place. Mongols are an old and legendary people with lots of history too, including eventually running a giant empire that covered the great majority of Asia for many years, under the leadership of the ruthless conqueror Genghis Khan and his Mongol Empire. This became the largest empire in world history, by the way, but it also gave the people in Mongolia a reputation of being ruthless, violent, savage, and cruel. But that was nearly 1,000 years ago, and in recent history, Mongolia has certainly shrunk in size and in world relevance. In fact, that country has become so passé, millennial girls like MJ are getting offensively shocked to be even partly from there. And the more she's upset about being from there, the more bigoted it makes her seem against that entire nation and its worldwide history of once being a legendary group of people who are now more humble.
Like Mongolian? Like Dalai Lama? Okay, I am such an idiot because of course, I mean, everyone probably knows this already, but the Dalai Lama is from Tibet and not Mongolia.
Yeah, I'm less concerned with that mistake and more worried about this horrific mask you're wearing. My nightmares will be haunted forever by this image. Really, this clip is just also a good example of two things we haven't had time to go over here. First, this girl has lots of really cringy, wannabe funny moments like this. She sings out of nowhere, talks really fast, tries to do voices and everything, and all of it comes off as unfunny cringe. But I will give her points for at least trying to be interesting. She seems nice enough actually too, and I'm sure she truly doesn't realize how offensive her disgust about being Mongolian really is. Which brings us to the next point of this clip. MJ is painstakingly unintelligent, which she even admits later on here. Basically, she's just not that bright, and that's another reason all this bullshit has come together as it has today.
Wait, I'm Mongolian? That's just weird. I feel like my family is a lot. It's just like my whole life. They were like, okay girl, your dad is Korean and German, so therefore you are Korean, German, and French.
I think this just goes to show many of these people are far too fixated on these DNA test things, and they're getting their hopes up far too high for them too. Really, you should just take this test and not have any expectations at all. Read your results and deal with them the way that they turn out. But instead, we've got girls like this, SJW influenced millennial women who are again not only hoping to be more or part African, but also they're ending up getting shocked and embarrassed with what they do turn out to be. Sure, the last two DNA test girls were a ashamed of being mostly white, and that's a bit different than this, but I do also find MJ's case here equally troubling since she's apparently so shook that she's part Mongolian, and in my opinion, no one should be this ashamed to be European or Mongolian, or any other background for that matter. What do you guys think? Were you surprised this girl wasn't German, like how she claimed and was told? Could you guess she was part Mongolian, maybe from the beginning, like how I did? And would you take a DNA test like this yourself? I'm actually considering taking an Ancestry DNA test myself and making a video for you guys about it later, so if you guys want that to happen, make sure you hit like on this video right here, right now. Let's see if we can get, say, 6,000 likes, and I'll take a DNA test of my own and share the results with you. Hit that like button below if you're interested, and thanks for watching today's episode. Have a great day, and we'll see you all next time.